Thanks, Les. Okay, I'm going to share how Shell has approached the reduction of hydrocarbon leaks in our business. As we've talked about this earlier today, this is the industry, where the industry was and what we were, the challenge that was levelled at all operators. And our company, Shell, has had quite a large part to play in that with a number of installation and assets we have across the UK business. My role in this, for my sins, I was identified as the UK champion for hydrocarbon leak reduction for Shell in the UK. How we approached it, how we looked to approach this, was looking at some key principles, business improvement principles. So really, what was the goal? What was we trying to achieve as business, as a company? How we were going to do that? So we created the project charter. We had some fancy words in there, what we wanted to do. The key part of this was really agreeing what the schedule was and what were some of the key milestones that we're trying to get to as a company. We had a lot of data to mine through. We've talked about it earlier. Some of the other colleagues have talked about this. We used data going back some 10 years, as you can imagine, quite a lot to get through, trying to put that into buckets, themes to say what were the key causes of some of the releases. From that Pareto analysis and that kind of real in-depth data analysis, really looking at, well, what is the work streams that we want to take forward? What we were keen not to do, we didn't want to create new initiatives. At the time, our business has got kind of initiative overload, and the feedback we're receiving loud and clear from our OIMs and our teams offshore is please, no more initiatives. Let's stay the course with the stuff that we've got. So we looked at, well, okay, how do we then build this into base business so it's not a one-off improvement, and we're looking to really embed the behaviours, embed the improvements across already kind of many different processes that we have in a company. So from that, we identified them, and what was real key at the time and came kind of shining out at this, there was no silver bullet there. There was no one thing if we did was going to eliminate all of our number of hydrocarbon releases. So that was quite clear. So it was about really working on what's the clear work streams that's going to work, the 80-20 solution, and really get after them. So from that, you see there, we went into a kind of staircase approach. So picked 7 key themes, really, that we wanted to focus on, that we thought would really kind of get to the bottom of the majority of our hydrocarbon releases. And certainly key from that was these were base business. These weren't new stuff that we were going to introduce into business. So it wasn't another activity that we wanted someone in the business to do. So it was really enforcing and reinforcing what was already present in the business. One of which we've talked today, joined up thinking, awareness program, really hitting the workforce at every level, offshore and onshore. So what part they play in that, what part do they play in preventing hydrocarbon releases. There was an element in there looking at hoses, flexible hoses. Amount of releases we're seeing from hoses across the business was on the increase, both from a gaseous and from an oil-based one as well. MCDRs, what we call as MCDRs, a material corrosion damage report. So really some of the leading indicators that we get, that we do some risk-based inspection, we find stuff going wrong, we find thinning pipework. We then put it into a system to go and do some work in the future. So really about, are we really understanding and realising what some of these risks are to the business? So really looking at that, taking that to a level, a facility risk review level, to do we understand what that future leak paths of the future are. Other elements in there, valves, and really identifying with industry that valves were one of the major releases that we were seeing across the business, be it from grease ports, be it from stems, be it from doing some fabric maintenance, gritting to stems, operating valves, creating leak paths in our system. So really, do we have the right strategies in place to manage that systems? And we've talked a lot about it today as well, is competence. Be it the mechanical joint competence, be it the competence of our operators as we're operating our system, and just doing what it says on the tin. We have processes, we have procedures, we have a permit to work system. Do we follow it? If we followed it to the letter, then you would arguably you wouldn't have these releases or these breakages of the systems. So really looking at the competence levels there as well. So this was a numerical target, like anything. We had to set ourselves a numerical target to meet our 50% reduction in the amount of leaks that we've seen. We've got, across the basin here, we had 25 assets, offshore assets that were included in this number. So you can see the numbers up there. 36 down to 18 would say that we would meet the 50% reduction from a shelf perspective across industry. So looking at, you've got some of the regulatory targets there in terms of the minute. And I will share in the next view graph, effectively, did we meet that? So this is our picture for the 2012-2013, so from April through to March. So I'm pleased to say that as a company, we did meet the 50% reduction target that was posted from industry. You can see there the colorations. You've got red for majors, you've got the green for the minor, and you've got the kind of orange-yellow colour for the significant releases. So looking at the data sets back against the 2009-2010 data, so major releases, we had one there, we had one in the reporting period. And you have one of the OEMs in the room today mentioned in the earlier discussion from BP that that installation's been out for a long period of time, where we've done a lot of work, invested a lot of money in kind of doing a design change on a very complex problem on that installation. So going forward, that engineered solution should take care of that kind of major release opportunity. You can see there that from a significant release, we had a 66% improvement over the reporting period in terms of significant releases. And yes, that's great, but that's a process safety. That's reducing the risk to individuals at these installations. So again, a very positive story. You're still seeing kind of 4 significant releases across the business, which is 4 too many, but overall a positive step moving forward. And as from the minor releases, 43% improvement on the reporting period, like I said before. So you see there, a total of 18 over the 25 assets. But importantly, the one I was going to kind of focus on was we've seen a 28% attributable to humans, or directly attributable to human error, human intervention. And I'm just going to share one event and what that meant to the individuals onshore, what that meant to the individuals offshore in terms of that. These are just an overview of the number that we've seen across the business. I know it's very difficult to see there, so it shows you the minors, the significance, the majors, and some of the kind of direct reasons for the cause of leak there, which is kind of dropped out. And the key thing to take from this is we've tested ourselves against that, and what we think, what we know, looking at the work streams that we've identified, is these are robust against the work streams that we're going to move forward to sustainably improve our performance in the business. So they're robust. We test ourselves against them each month. So looking at this incident, so what I'm going to give you as an example. So I'm going to use Gannet as an example here. We're doing flash gas compressor. I'm sure many of you have got gas compressors in your installations. This was a very simple operation. The HP seal gas system, we had seen fluids into the HP fuel gas system. The technicians were trying to blow down these said liquids into another part of the process. So again, an activity that's pretty routine. We had a very experienced technician and an inexperienced technician go to carry out this activity. And what's interesting in some of the discussions some of the earlier colleagues have talked about was communication and control of work seen as key issues in the industry. And this incident in its entirety was down to a control of work and communication issues, you can see from the incident. So the incident was gas release had during the vented operations. So the individuals took a flexible hose, or a suitably rated hose for the job, connected it to the HP fuel gas system, and the point was to connect it to another part of the process which would allow them to blow the liquids down safely into a part of the process that could deal with it. So they did have a toolbox stock. They used a routine template from an ISSOW system, so I'm sure most of them in the room are aware or familiar with what that terminology is. It's just a template which is pre-approved, which has a certain level of risk assessment in there. What came out of it post-review was the actual use of flexible hoses wasn't covered in this template that the guys used. So it didn't form part of their toolbox talk and part of the discussions. They were in a noisy module, so they went ahead to go and do it. And kind of the one point with this one, if it was one technician that went to do this task, then we wouldn't have had this gas release. He wouldn't have been able to connect it to the source. go to the end of the hose, connect it to the point, and then open up the valve. So in the instance, they had 2 technicians, one of them experienced, one of them inexperienced, and they connected it to the hose. They went to connect it to the other end. The technician shouted across the module, the noisy module, to the other individual. He thought he says it was connected. He went to open up the valve. He opened up the valve. The technician had connected it to the other point. The resultant was we had a gas release, which resulted in the process being shut down and the platform being brought to GPA. So that it was isolated fairly quickly, and it wasn't. It was a minor release in terms of the volume. But in terms of the learning, there was a number of learning points from this, from a very simplistic task leading to control of work issue and leading to real communication issues. So that wasn't the end of the story, because then we had a really uncomfortable debate with a regulator. We had the OIM, his operations supervisor, his operations team leader, involved in that conversation. Myself as the hydrocarbon leak reduction focal point and the onshore operations focal point for this asset. And we had the regulator. We were having that discussion with regards to that in-depth investigation and what had gone wrong and how it had gone wrong. And that was a very uncomfortable meeting for the individuals involved in that discussion. So the reflection back from that, and the reflection that came back, was that was a place that the installation and the staff didn't want to get themselves in. I certainly didn't want to get myself in that place, again, having that level of conversations from something that was pretty easily preventable in terms of if you look at the activity. So kind of summarising really what it tells us. So the data analysis that we've done across that 10-year period shows us that we are continue to be robust against our themes identified in our staircase approach. We've given feedback to our senior managers, the SI 971 reps and the installations at the installation forums, and to the regulator themselves. So it aligns very much so with what we're seeing at an industry level. So the key themes that we're identifying are what the regulator is seeing when they are doing their own analysis. So that they were keen to see that we were bringing that forward. And one of the key things that we've seen is to keep this alive. So keep talking about the importance of reducing the hydrocarbon releases. So when we do your management visits offshore, you do your audits, you go and talk to the staff. It's really about emphasising the importance of reducing them and what part the individuals play. Whether you're an operator, whether you're a chef, which part of the organisation you work, we've all got a part in that to play. Keeping it linking it to the process safety and keeping it visible. And it's about the joined-up thinking as a step-change group. The material that we're doing at an industry level and sharing across all the assets is really is showing to be very valuable and getting excellent feedback from the team. So the feedback I solicit from my offshore teams up and down the UK has all been very positive, and they are now seeing how they play in reducing the hydrocarbon leaks. It's about continuous improvement. It's about not a one-off improvement. So yes, we've met the 50% reduction as an organisation, but it's not about resting there. It's really about challenging ourselves. How are we going to sustainably improve year on year in getting down to the target zero, or the zero leak place that we got? And I liked what Expro released earlier about no leaks is acceptable. So really aligning target zero, no leaks acceptable, and what we can all do individually and collectively to get to that. And really embedding systems and behaviour supporting the prevention of reoccurrence. So really about cross-asset learning. Me or one of my team members trying and get ourselves involved for every incident review panel that we have from a hydrocarbon release. And we've had some really good discussions that we've had and shared with offshore teams and ourselves in terms of understanding what the release sites were, what the causes were, and sharing that information across wider. And that's something we will continue to do throughout the future years, to get involved, and hopefully on a more or less frequent basis, but to raise that share and share that learnings across all of our UK assets. So that's what I want to share. And I'll be happy to take questions during the question and answer session. Thanks.